Welcome to our Nutrition and Immunity Workshop. My name's Jacob, if you guys haven't met me before. I'm going to be the new GM over at the Octane location at Summit. And I just kind of want to introduce our registered dietitian, Alissa Paladino, and I'm going to give her the floor. And we'll, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, and then we can kind of address those at the end if we have time, and then we can send them on maybe an email or something. We can get those answered for you. So I will give the floor to Alissa.
Okay, thanks. And this is being recorded, and I will send the slides after the fact. So if anybody, don't feel any pressure to be taking notes. If there's something that you see on the slides that you want to refer up for that introduction, and thanks everyone for choosing to spend an hour of their afternoon, or maybe it's the morning, I'm not sure where everybody is tuning in from, learning about nutrition and immunity. My name is Alissa Paladino. I'm based in Atlanta, and I do contract nutrition support for your fitness center, for Cox. So we'll kind of just dive in. And hopefully y'all can see and hear me okay, but the slides are the important thing. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to cover, like I like to start all my nutrition presentations, not knowing you've seen me present in the past, or not knowing what everybody's foundation background is in understanding about nutrition. So we're going to start with just some basic fundamentals. We'll also then discuss very briefly, very high level, some basics about the immune system. We'll go through specific nutrients that are involved in the immune system. We'll talk about supplements for lungs, and then I will share some immune supporting recipes, kind of present a sample day of eating for optimal immune health, and then time permitting, we'll go through some food safety kind of considerations towards the end. But if not, if we don't get to that and you'd rather have your questions addressed, then just remember that you will be getting these slides. Okay, so nutrition. Why do we even care? Our food choices play a really, really powerful role in our overall health. And nutrition, our food choices, impact a broad range of different health functions, and definitely impacts our risk for disease. It impacts our energy levels, our sleep, our mood, our exercise performance, and our recovery from exercise, and immunity. So especially as we kind of approach the winter months, the time is about to change, and sadly, about a week. And COVID-19 is still, it's a present concern. We have flu season coming up. Probably a lot of folks are seeking out ways to strengthen their immune system, and in doing so, probably wondering what role their food choices and nutrition in general can play in all that. And nutrition does play a role in immune health, as we will see, but there are some limitations. Okay, so to start with nutrition fundamentals, some foundational concepts here, we're going to talk about macronutrients and micronutrients. And those of you who have seen me present other nutrition topics before should be familiar with these terms by now. But basically what macronutrients are, they are nutrients that are essential. We need them in larger amounts in our diets. They provide calories, aka energy, and there are three types: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Each of them different role in our body and in food, and we require a balance of all three each day, ideally at each meal, for optimal health and performance. So we'll start with carbohydrates. They're going to be the most important for quick, easy energy. They're the preferred fuel for our brains. So if we're trying to stay focused and energized during the workday, we want to make sure we're eating ample carbohydrates, and they are the preferred fuel for our working muscles, especially at higher intensities and longer durations. Eating carbohydrates does directly impact blood glucose, so it does. Eating carbs does cause our blood, which isn't inherently a bad thing. It's actually how our body gets energy from eating carbohydrates. For health, particularly for heart health, we want to focus on more fibrous carbs while limiting fine grains, and with the exception being immediately before and during exercise, especially for any of you who are doing any kind of endurance training like running or cycling. So some carbohydrate food choices, food sources, just to kind of show you. A lot of times people associate carbs with less healthy options, but there's plenty of very nutrient supply carbs, including oats, whole grains, whole wheat bread, pasta, fruit, vegetables, corn, and peas, and then our beans, lentils, and legumes. All right, our next macronutrient is protein, and protein plays a very important role in tissue growth and repair, including building and maintaining muscle, and as we'll see later, building and kind of maintaining the different components of the immune system. And eating protein improves our satiety and helps us manage our hunger. So we're going to feel more satisfied and experience less hunger if we incorporate protein into our meals and our snacks. For heart health, we want to focus on our leaner animal sources of protein as well as our plant-based sources of protein. That's in order to limit our fat. We definitely want to focus on spreading our protein intake evenly throughout the day, so including a good protein source in each of our meals and snacks, including in that post-workout window for optimal recovery. And some protein food sources, beef and pork, so our red meat is certainly a good source, our fish and our seafood, poultry, which includes chicken and turkey, eggs and egg whites, dairy, which includes milk, yogurt, and cheese. Keep in mind our non-dairy substitutes may and often do not contain dairy fat and read your labels. Beans, lentils, and legumes, excellent plant-based source of protein. Also tofu, which is made from soy, and nuts have some as well, nuts and seeds. And our third macronutrient is fat. And I always like to clarify when I talk about dietary fat that is not the same as body fat, but both are essential. So body fat plays important roles in insulation, protecting our organs and our cells. It's a stored fuel source for healthy hormone levels in both women and men. While on the other hand, dietary fat, which is the fat we eat through our foods, gives our foods flavor, satiety, so we feel more full for longer, and it assists with nutrient absorption, specifically our fat-soluble vitamins, which are A, D, and K. For heart health, we want to focus on our unsaturated, limiting our saturated fat and trans fat, and these are going to be found primarily in our fatty animal products and in like processed foods and good healthy food sources of fat include nuts and nut butters, seeds, avocado, olive and other plant oils, fatty fish such as mackerel, and cheese. Fatty fish can specifically contain a healthy type of fat called omega-3s, which are really important for immune health and inflammation. And cheese I put on this list because even though it's an animal-based food, it contains saturated fat, which is less good for our heart. It gives you a lot of other positive protein like calcium for bone health. So, it's not a wasted fat source. Then finally, just to touch on micronutrients, because we actually will be getting into some of these when we circle into the next section on the role of nutrition in immune. Nutrition just is a fancy term for vitamins and minerals. So these are nutrients that we need in much smaller amounts compared to our macros, and they do not provide calories, but unlike macros. But like macros, they are essential, meaning we must obtain them from our diet, or potentially from supplements, but we can't make them within our body, and they play roles in our health. So from energy production, so getting energy from macronutrients, metabolism, exercise, performance, and recovery, and certainly in the immune health and the immune system and the immune response. Really best obtained through a balanced diet. If you're eating a variety of foods from a variety of food groups, most people can get all the micronutrients that they need. If you are following a restrictive diet for whatever reason, medical necessity, personal preference, food allergies, you might end up requiring some supplementation. I think specifically about calcium and B12 for people following a vegan diet, or limiting dairy, iron, so you are eating, not eating animal products as well. Okay. All right. So that's sort of nutrition basics. Super fast, I know, but hopefully some of you have seen that content in previous nutrition presentations. Again, we're going to go through the next section, which is the immune system. Well, pretty basic, but I think we need to understand that first before we look at how nutrition affects it. All right. The immune system, and I'm not a scientist, I'm a dietitian, so this is as basic as for me to understand as much as for you. The immune system is a complex network of cells, tissues, and signaling molecules that collectively work to defend the body against pathogens, which could include bacteria and viruses, and help us fight infection. And so there's two different kinds of our immune system. There's the innate and the adaptive. And for an effective immune response, many different immune cells must be coordinated and their activity has to be regulated. So it's a complex process, and there's lots of different things involved in it, and different factors that affect it, including dietary factors. So this is where nutrition comes in. So specifically, there are certain nutrients that play a role in this complex immune defense system. And so we're going to take a closer look at what these nutrients are, which foods they're found in, and how they may help us build a strong immune system. But before we get into that, I do want to share the limits of nutrition when it comes to immunity, because it is not a panacea, and it certainly doesn't replace actual medical care, both preventative and treatment. So there's no single food and there's no single nutrient that can prevent or cure COVID-19 or really any other kind of medical condition, to be honest. So you really want to be a savvy consumer and beware of any radical claims, miracle cures, supplements that are marketed to boost the immune system. And actually, if you pay attention, I will almost never, if I can help it, use that term, boost the immune system, because it's just not accurate. We can eat certain nutrients that can then support that immune response and build a healthy immune system. And the best news is that we can consume those nutrients as part of a balanced diet. We don't necessarily have to start eating super esoteric foods or taking lots of expensive supplements. Here are the nutrients that impact immune health. And this isn't like an exhaustive list. These are the main ones. But there are probably others that I have not fully addressed here, but the main ones, antioxidants, polyphenols, which are actually a class of antioxidants, pre and probiotics, vitamin D, omega-3s, protein, herbs, spices, and aromatics, and then fluids, so hydration. So those are the four key areas that we're going to talk about. Starting with antioxidants. Now, what are antioxidants? You may have already heard this term in regards to immune health and also just kind of in regards to general health. But what they are compounds that neutralize and destroy free radicals and thus prevent them from causing damage to our cells, tissues, and DNA. They're compounds that are found in plants mainly. They can improve, when we consume them in our diets, they can improve certain immune responses and honestly offer a whole host of other health benefits and disease prevention benefits. And antioxidants are found in a variety of whole foods that can and should easily be incorporated into a balanced eating pattern. So again, not necessarily compounds or substances that we need to supplement, but we can pretty easily get through food. And when we get our antioxidants through food, once you kind of take a look at this list, you'll realize they're found in foods that are really, really healthy for us. So if we focus on eating more of these foods that are rich in antioxidants, we're going to not only get those antioxidants, we're also going to reap all these other health benefits, which we would not necessarily reap if we just took a mega dose of vitamin C pill, for example. I know that's gotten pretty common during the COVID era and certainly during flu season. So food sources of vitamin C, that's going to be our first antioxidant that we'll go through. Citrus fruits and juices, oranges, grapefruit, tangerines, bell peppers, strawberries, tomatoes, broccoli, cantaloupe, cauliflower, kale, kiwi, papaya. So lots of our colorful fruits and vegetables are rich sources of the antioxidant vitamin C. Vitamin A, the plant form of which is known as beta carotene, that's what gives that orange pigment to fruits and vegetables, can be found in foods that include sweet potatoes, carrots, pumpkin, spinach, broccoli, apricots, and then in some animal sources, you'll find the preformed vitamin A, which is eggs and fortified dairy milk. And you'll notice that some of the veggies, the spinach and the broccoli, those aren't orange, despite having the orange pigment and beta carotene, and that is because, fun fact, the green pigmented chlorophyll kind of overpowers it, but it's still got the beta carotene that you need. Vitamin E, this is actually, like A as well, fat-soluble vitamin that's an antioxidant. So it's going to be found in a lot of fat-rich foods, such as almonds and other nuts, sunflower seeds and other seeds, peanut butter and other nut butters, vegetable oils, and then it's going to be fortified in a lot of nut milk. So if you're drinking maybe cashew milk or almond milk, typically it's going to be fortified with vitamin E. And then One final, and this is again not an exhaustive list of antioxidants, but one final one that's readily found in the food system would be zinc. This is actually a mineral, not a vitamin. It is found in animal sources and in fact that are absorbed by our bodies from animal sources. So beef, fish, seafood, dark meat, poultry, pork chops, but then in some plant-based sources as well, like our whole grains, fortified cereal, beans, chickpeas, pumpkin and other seeds, almonds and other nuts, and tofu. So as you can see, plenty of really nutritious foods are, if we're eating these on a regular basis, great ways to get the antioxidants that we need. Another sort of a subclass, like I mentioned, of antioxidants is called polyphenols. And these are compounds that have science-based, evidence-based roles in immunity and reducing inflammation. They occur naturally in a lot of fruits and vegetables. So there's really the basic recommendation I would make for immune health and all levels of health is trying to eat more fresh and colorful fruits and vegetables. But you can also find polyphenols in some of our other favorites, like coffee, tea, cocoa, and red wine. So if you're consuming those beverages or those foods, know that you are getting some additional benefits in terms of immunity and inflammation. And the darker the cocoa, certainly the more kind of powerful or the more concentrated dose you're going to get of those polyphenols. So I mentioned also that pre and probiotics play a role in the immune system. And so kind of understanding that, we wanted to just take a quick step back and look at the gut microbiome, another very like trendy term if you follow nutrition and health at all. The term gut microbiome refers collectively to all the microorganisms, so mainly bacteria, that live in our gut, so live in like our intestines. When we have a healthy GI system, gastrointestinal system, it supports a healthy immune system because our gut is tightly interwoven with our immune system and honestly so many different aspects of our health. That's why there's so much focus now on gut health, because we're realizing just how linked it is to so many different aspects of health. So if we want to optimize our gut health, and in doing so optimize our immune system, there's two ways to do it. We can increase our intake of probiotics, which are the good bacteria themselves, and or we can increase our intake of prebiotics, which are actually the fuel for that good bacteria. So it allows them to like thrive and grow. So foods that are high in prebiotics, so again, the fuel for the good bacteria, most vegetables. So you're going to notice a trend here, but especially artichokes and asparagus, a lot of fruits, including apples and bananas. So not super esoteric fruit here, right? We're just talking about standard fruit. Oats and other grains, flax and other seeds, and then some of our aromatics like onions, garlics, and leeks, which are great ways to add flavor to our food. And then we're getting a little boost of prebiotics to allow all that good bacteria in our gut to thrive. All right. Then we can also directly consume the probiotics, the good bacteria themselves, in food. And so some food sources of probiotics are fermented foods. So we've got kombucha, tempeh, which is fermented soy, miso, which is also fermented soy, kimchi and sauerkraut, which is fermented cabbage from different cultures, Greek yogurt, one of my go-tos and first recommendation for those who are able to tolerate dairy, lots of different strains of good probiotic bacteria in there, as well as kefir, and then some of our aged cheeses like Parmesan, cheddar, Gruyere, and Manchego. So yeah, you can easily eat through your diet prebiotics and probiotics, thus improving your gut health and thus supporting a healthy immune system. All right, so the next nutrient that affects immune health is vitamin D. And this is like A and E, a fat-soluble vitamin, and it plays key roles in a number of different aspects of our health, including immunity. It is primarily made, vitamin D, on our skin when our skin is exposed to sunlight. Vitamin D is not widely found in food sources. So it's something to consider as we move into the winter months where we have less sunlight available to us. And when we are out in the sun, we're usually layered up. So less of our skin is even exposed to the sun, that we might need to think about ramping up our food intake of vitamin D or potentially consider a supplement. If you measure your levels and you see that they're low. So yeah, there are some food sources, not a lot, but there are some: fatty fish, mushrooms, fortified dairy. So pretty much all like milk, dairy milk is going to be fortified with vitamin D because one of its many amazing roles is it helps with the absorption of calcium. So you're drinking milk, you're trying to get calcium, it's more vitamin D is added so that you can better absorb that calcium. But as a bonus, you're getting the vitamin D you need for your immune health as well. And then egg yolks. So if you're someone who likes to eat eggs as a great protein-rich breakfast, make sure you eat those yolks so you can get some vitamin D. But again, like I mentioned, this is a deficiency that can be quite common, especially in the winter months. So yeah, you might want to think about having your levels measured at some point, and then if you find they're low, it could be something that's worth supplementing. The recommended intake from foods per day is 600 IU. But most supplements that you'll find will be a broad range. A multivitamin will typically have 600 to 800, and then if you get a standalone supplement, it's usually at least 1,000. So it's typically giving you even more than you need. So another nutrient that's involved in immune health and so many different aspects of health, I have to say, omega-3 fats are real winners. It's a type of polyunsaturated fat that's primarily found in fatty fish, such as salmon, tuna, and mackerel, and it's also found in some plant sources, including walnuts, chia seeds, and ground flax. That form, alpha-linoleic acid, has to then be converted to kind of the active, positive, powerful form, DHA and EPA, that you would get directly by eating the fish. But it can be done. So don't feel like just because you hate fish or don't eat fish that you can't get the omega-3s that you need. There's also it's sometimes fortified in other foods, including dairy and eggs. So I've been recently like doing the Fairlife milk a lot and recommending it to clients because one, it's lactose free. So a lot of people, avoid dairy for the lactose, and so lactose free is awesome. It's also ultra filtered, so it's even higher in protein than regular milk. And you can find it in a version that's fortified with DHA and EPA, so that's awesome too. But yeah, these omega-3 fats play all sorts of positive roles in our body, reduce risk for a number of diseases, including cardiovascular disease. And the kind of mechanism of action there is through their roles in inflammation. So that's kind of how it's involved in the immune response. But need to understand it super intricately just to know that it's important to incorporate some of these foods into your diet. And then protein. So protein we usually talk about when we're talking about exercise recovery, when we're talking about building muscle, when we're talking about supporting metabolism, when we're talking about maintaining strength and functionality with age, when we're talking about retaining lean muscle with weight loss. There's so many times that we really focus on protein, and here's one more. It's involved in immune health. So protein provides the building blocks known as amino acids for all our cells, all our tissues, all our enzymes, and our muscles, but really all the components that are part of the immune system. So if we're trying to, have a healthy, strong immune system, we got to take an adequate protein. And we might want to focus a little bit more on protein, during this season. So the minimum daily intake that's recommended for protein, called the RDA, recommended daily allowance, is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So that's sort of the minimum that we need for just like basic like cell turnover and like building and repairing these tissues and enzymes. But most people honestly require more, especially older people. So with age, our protein needs increase up to maybe 2 times that level. So 1.6 grams per kilogram instead of 0.8, because there's less absorption and we want to make sure to offset that age-related muscle loss. For athletes and other active people, to optimize recovery and muscle protein synthesis, we'll recommend 1.2 grams to up to 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram, so much higher than that minimum RDA. And if you are actually working on a weight loss goal and you're reducing your calorie intake, it's also really important to kind of eat your protein on the higher end to maintain as much of your lean mass and metabolism as possible. And I know that's like kind of complicated math. You first have to take your weight in pounds, then convert it into kilograms, which is dividing it by 2.2. And then, yeah, you would figure it out. So say you weigh like about 150 pounds, just because I'm talking aloud here, let's say you're 75 kilograms. 1 gram of protein per kilogram per day would be 75 grams of protein per day. 2 grams of protein per kilogram would be then 150 grams per day, just to kind of give you an idea of how the math works. But yeah, you would plug in your individual numbers. But all that said, yes, it's important to know our protein target for the day, but to really utilize it, we want to make sure we spread it out. So how we distribute our protein intake is just as important as hitting that daily target. So it's just focus on having a good protein source at all your meals and snacks, and don't skip meals and snacks. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, any snacks you're eating in between, making sure there's a good protein source. Then you don't really even have to worry all too much about calculating those numbers. And you can refer back to the slide in our Nutrition Foundations for a good list of protein-rich foods, which is why I always like to start with some Nutrition Foundations. And we can find protein in plant-based and animal sources, which having a combination of those would be the best option for heart health. The next kind of category of food or nutrition components that could affect the immune system would be herbs, spices, and aromatics. So in addition to adding flavor to our meals, when we use fresh herbs, spices, and aromatics, we do also then get immune supporting and anti-inflammatory benefits. So onions, garlic, shallots, and leeks, and if you remember, these also fall under the category of foods that contain prebiotics, so that good fuel for our good bacteria. Ginger, cinnamon, turmeric, the active compound in which is called curcumin. I never really know how to pronounce that. Maybe someone on the call does, but basically, we can incorporate these foods into our cooking, and we'll probably enjoy our recipes a lot more, and we'll get some of these kind of anti-inflammatory and immune supporting benefits. Like there's nothing like cooking with garlic, sauteing some garlic and some olive oil before you add your veggies in. Makes a huge difference. Onions on everything for me. Homemade salad dressings, stir fries, put it on a one sheet pan meal. But yeah, the more you get more flavor, but you also get more nutritional benefits. And then finally, fluids. So we know that staying hydrated is vital to overall health, and water is essential for so many different bodily processes. For those of you who are athletes, who are running or cycling outdoors or doing high intensity exercise, we know how vital it is to take in enough fluids so that we don't get dehydrated, so that, our blood volume maintains and we have proper fluid electrolyte balance. But one maybe less known role of water in our body is in the immune response. So not to make anybody crazy about like overdosing on water, because again, there's no one magic bullet to supporting a healthy immune system, but really try to focus on your hydration in general. Is a good goal for everyone pretty much. So I always recommend trying to sip on fluids regularly during the day. You don't want to get to a point where like it's 3 or 4 in the afternoon and you're really thirsty and you realize that you haven't had anything to drink since like maybe your coffee in the morning. And that can happen. That can happen when you get busy, whether you're working at home, whether you're working in the office, you log onto your computer, it's go, go, go. And then, you realize, you haven't had anything to drink all day. So, investing in a reusable water bottle and then refilling it depending on the size, right? If it's 32-ounce bottle or a liter, maybe you set a goal to get through one of those, but before lunchtime, and you try to get through the other one before you finish up work for the day. And that's kind of your base of 8-ounce glasses. Really, we do recommend primarily water for health, but any other fluid that's naturally sugar-free is fine too. So if you're someone who likes sparkling water, by all means, those cans of LaCroix, they certainly count towards your hydration. If you want to do some green tea or black tea or herbal tea, that counts too. Even coffee counts towards hydration. It's not as much of a diuretic as was traditionally thought. If you find plain water boring and you want to avoid, the added sugar that you would find in like a sports drink or a juice, try adding pieces of fresh fruit or frozen fruit just to give it a hint of flavor. You can even add herbs, so like basil or mint, slices of cucumber, like little orange segments, strawberries, frozen berries work really well too. And then again, not to make anyone crazy about monitoring their water intake, but it is easier to get dehydrated than we may think. So if you just kind of monitor the color of your urine, that's a good way to tell if you're staying on top of your hydration. So if it's a nice light lemonade color or like a straw color, you're probably fine. You know, if it looks like more like iced tea, or you're just not having to go to the bathroom a lot, that could be a sign that you need to step up your fluids and that you might be a little dehydrated. All right. So those are the 8 key main nutritional kind of targets for supporting a healthy immune system. And so far, everything we've discussed has been nutrients that we get from food, right? Omega-3s we can get from fish and nuts. Zinc we can get from beef and whole grains. Vitamin A we can get from pumpkin and carrots, right? So pre and probiotics, we can get from onions and apples and asparagus and kefir and Greek yogurt. So food first. But there may be some cases and some nutrients that warrant supplementation. So let's go through, what nutrients those might be when diet alone might not be enough. Again, food first, always my like go-to. Start with trying to eat a balanced diet, trying not to restrict or eliminate broad categories of foods. But if you need to for medical necessity or for just personal preference, again, you might find yourself, missing out on some key nutrients, and those could be key nutrients that are involved in the immune response. But food tends to be safer. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, very tightly monitors the safety of our food system as well as drugs. But the supplement industry is really deregulated. So it falls in this murky middle legal category where there's really no oversight. So, the supplements may not be what they claim to be. They might have higher or lower levels of what it's claiming to have in it, and also could be adulterated. So it's always safer to go with food. It's usually more affordable to go with food. I cannot tell you how many clients have come to me with their laundry list of supplements, and it just blows my mind how much they must be spending on different supplements, not to mention actually taking them all. But yeah, that can get expensive, and food often is cheaper. And you're getting additional health and nutrition benefits. So kind of like when I was speaking about the antioxidants, the foods they're found in, your fruits and your vegetables, right, and your whole grains and your nuts and your lean proteins. When we're eating those foods, we're not only getting those antioxidants, we're getting a whole host of other health and nutrition benefits. And we're not getting those same health and nutrition benefits when we're just taking a pill form of, say, vitamin C or zinc. And you can decrease the risk of overdose. You are not very likely, it's probably close to impossible to overdose on vitamin C or beta carotene or zinc just by eating a balanced diet. But you very well could overdose on a given nutrient if you're taking it in a really concentrated pill form. Water-soluble vitamins, which are all the ones besides A, D, E, and K, your body absorbs what it needs, and you eliminate the excess via your urine. So if you were to overdose on vitamin C, like get a really, really high dose of it, like thousands of milligrams, when the RDA is only, or daily value is only about 75 milligrams, you're not going to absorb all that vitamin C. You're going to pee out the excess once your body has absorbed what it needs. But in the process, you can think, oh, it's not dangerous. It's a waste of money. But actually, it can cause some GI distress. So there's always a risk when you take, more of a good thing is not always a good thing. In fact, it often is not. And you don't have that risk if you're getting your nutrients through food, usually. But again, when may supplements be warranted? So like I keep saying, these immune supporting nutrients from our antioxidants to our probiotics can be found in fairly common foods. And these are foods that most people can easily incorporate into their daily eating pattern and should. They're mostly healthy foods. But in some cases, diet alone may not be adequate to provide all of these essential nutrients. So if you are following dietary restrictions, like maybe you are avoiding dairy, or avoiding fish, or avoiding beef, or avoiding soy, right? Or there's certain fruits or vegetables that you don't like. Food preferences can certainly result in missing out on some key nutrients. Food allergies, definitely. Different health conditions. So different health conditions can mean that you're not probably absorbing certain nutrients from your food, or you have higher needs than the general population and thus must supplement to meet those needs. Geographical factors. So this probably the most would be vitamin D. So if you're living somewhere where you're not getting a lot of sun exposure at all during the year, you might really need to supplement that one. And then demographic factors. I think with age, you certainly need more of certain nutrients like B12 and protein, potentially even vitamin C and other of the antioxidants. With darker skin tones, you need more vitamin D through sun exposure. And then if fish oil, you might want to supplement for your omega-3s if your diet is limited. So if you're someone who you never eat fish or seafood because of a preference or an allergy, and you're just not, you're not going to do a ton of like walnuts, chia, and flax seeds, that might be one to supplement. Plus, the form that's found in the walnuts, the chia, and the flax seeds, isn't as well used by the body as the direct form that you'd get from the fish. All right, so I guess I kind of went through this already, but supplements are not regulated by the FDA to see the extent that food and drugs are. So going back to that safety issue and why a food-first approach is typically safer, you go with a brand you trust, and honestly, this is as true for like your protein powder as it is for like an omega-3 pill. A lot of brands elect to go through third-party certifications. So that means they have an independent third party go through and inspect their products and can really guarantee that what's inside is what it's claiming to be. For sports related products like your protein powders and maybe like your amino acids, NSF would be a certification to look for. For some of your other vitamins and minerals or pill-based supplements, the USP verification is a good one to look for. And just off the top of my head, I can tell you that the Kirkland products, so the ones that are made at Costco or for Costco, are USP verified, and that the brand Nature Made, it's like the green bottle. Oh, it's not really green. It's like a brown bottle, has yellow tag and yellow top. The Nature Made brand is USP certified. So those are just two. And then Consumer Labs is an online resource. It's not the only one. There's a couple others. LabCorp, I think, is another one where you can go and search for the brand of supplement that you're looking at and seeing if it's been third-party tested. All right. Just breezing right through these slides. Usually I take questions as we go along, but I like Jacob's idea of waiting till the end to make sure we get through the content. So I just put together a sample day of eating, and it's not going to fit for everyone because it's not going to be all the foods y'all like. But I just wanted to show that it's pretty simple without like drastically changing your diet or eating anything really esoteric. It's achievable and realistic to think that you can eat in a way on a day-to-day basis that supports your immune health and really gives you all those immune supporting nutrients that you need. So as a sample day, again, this was totally will not work for everyone depending on the foods you like or your dietary restrictions or even your schedule. But here's one way you could do it. So for breakfast, you could have Greek yogurt, which would be probiotics, right? The good bacteria. Strawberries and blueberries, that's going to give you some antioxidants, including vitamin C. Whole grain cereal, which is going to give you fiber, which is a prebiotic, as well as possibly some zinc. Top it with flax and or pumpkin seeds, which are going to give you some healthy omega-3 fats, as well as some zinc, as well as some vitamin E, which are antioxidants. And then your coffee or your tea on the side would give you those polyphenols. For your morning snack, you could have an apple with either cheddar cheese or almond butter. The apple is going to give you some prebiotics, fibers. It's also going to give you some antioxidants, vitamin C. The cheddar cheese would be either probiotics, also some protein. Should have mentioned the Greek yogurt's a great source of protein too. And then the almond butter would give you those antioxidants, vitamin E, and zinc. So for lunch, you could do a burrito bowl with black beans, quinoa, sauteed spinach, peppers and onions, and olive oil with chopped tomatoes and avocado, and then optionally add an animal protein source or a plant-based protein source. So you're getting our protein in, we're getting our healthy fats in, we're getting our antioxidants in, we're getting our whole grains. So we're getting all the stuff that we need. For an afternoon snack, you could do a handful of almonds or your favorite nut. So maybe it's walnuts, maybe it's pecans. So healthy fats, fiber, zinc, vitamin E, those antioxidants. So some good stuff there. And then for dinner, one of my favorites, the one sheet pan meal, roasted sweet potatoes, a whole host of benefits, including potassium and complex carbs and fiber, but in this case, the focus would be the vitamin A, which is that antioxidant which supports immune health. The salmon or the chicken would be your protein source, as well as in the salmon, you'd be getting those omega-3s. The chicken thighs would give you some zinc. The asparagus, broccoli, or cauliflower would give you fiber, which is the prebiotic, as well as vitamins A and C. So those antioxidants, and the olive oil helps with the absorption of the fat-soluble nutrients, because it's the fat. And then dark chocolate for dessert, because it's delicious. And bonus, if it's really dark, you're going to get some of those polyphenols. That could also be a glass of red wine if the goal was polyphenols. All right. So again, it's just, this is a super nutrient dense day, right? Everything is kind of optimized and optimal. There's no like empty calories here, but it is still common food that, doesn't mean running to some crazy store or spending a ton of money. Eat this type of way. Certainly it will support a healthy immune system, but it really will really optimize all different aspects of your health. Okay. So I'll share some recipes, and these recipes are based around some of the foods we've been talking about that are rich in immune supporting nutrients. And I'll just kind of breeze through them because you will be getting these slides, and I want to make sure we have time for questions. I really hope there are some questions. The immune support smoothie, for those of you who like a smoothie as a breakfast or a post-workout shake, in this case, we're doing baby spinach for the vitamin A, fresh or frozen berries for the vitamin C, some sort of unsweetened nut milk for the vitamin E, a tablespoon of peanut butter for the zinc, a banana for the prebiotics, and then Greek yogurt for the probiotics, which of course is also the protein source. So this is a good recipe for success. Winter salad. So this is also very like interchangeable, so you can incorporate the foods that you actually like, but any kind of green. I chose baby arugula because that's my favorite. Shredded Parmesan cheese, or really any hard cheese, is going to give you some protein, but in this case also some probiotics, the good bacteria. Walnuts, or your favorite nuts, going to give you some omega-3s and healthy fats and zinc and vitamin E. And then the pomegranate seeds is going to give you some fiber, but also some vitamin C, which is an antioxidant. So that would be kind of a good template for a delicious salad. Any kind of like green, some kind of cheese, some kind of nut, and some kind of fruit. Oftentimes I'll put in dried cranberries or apples or pears or orange segments as the fruit, or pecans or pumpkin seeds for the nut, feta or goat for the cheese. So I love to play with this template. And a dressing recipe. So very easy, easier than we may think to make our own dressing. Really olive oil, and then any kind of vinegar. In this case, we're using apple cider vinegar, fresh sage, because we always get benefits when we're using fresh herbs, not to mention flavor. Shallots minced. This could be garlic, this could be any kind of onion, depending on the flavor profile you're going for. Honey, could be maple syrup, again, depending on the flavor profile you're going for, and then salt and pepper to taste. So as long as you have an acid, which in this case is vinegar, and oil, which in this case is olive oil, that's sort of your basic vinaigrette. And then you can add herbs, spices, and aromatics and sweeteners as needed. So just a couple more recipes. Brussels sprouts are a really great fall seasonal vegetable, and they're really easy to prepare just by roasting with a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. Great source of fiber, great source of antioxidant vitamins, and good source of prebiotic fibers. So really, to roast Brussels sprouts or any other vegetable, you prepare them. So you like chop them, you trim them, you wash them, you just coat them with olive oil, salt, and pepper, throw them on a sheet pan, and then you bake them in the oven at 425 degrees until they are crispy. So this is one of my favorite ways to prepare all sorts of vegetables, and bonus if it's a seasonal vegetable, which in the case of Brussels, we are in Brussels season. This one, okay, warming white bean chili. This is like, if you don't have to have a crock pot to do this, actually, because I made it on my stovetop. But this is just a powerhouse, warming, balanced, feel-good meal that you can enjoy all winter long. And it's great for like meal prep. You can make a big batch of it, put it into little containers, and then put some of them in the freezer for when you get home after a long, cold day. Or you move from your office to your kitchen after a cold day, a hard day of working from home. But yeah, sometimes no matter what's going on in our lives, we just need like an easy dinner. And in the winter, we typically want a warming dinner. So this one has ground turkey. I used a lean one here, but that's going to be some great zinc and some great protein. The onions, so we're going to get those prebiotic fibers. Celery, so it's very veggie rich. We've got celery, we've got tomatoes, we've got lot of spinach or any kind of green, and we've got lots of these like health promoting compounds from like the garlic, the plant-based protein from the beans. So lots of good stuff here. And then a dessert recipe. So apples we know are a good source of prebiotic fiber. I mean, so we know that they're going to support immune health, but they also have compounds in them that, I mean, that really support like blood sugar control. So that dietary fiber, the type of dietary fiber it has is important for regulating blood sugar, which can help prevent or manage diabetes and cholesterol. So good to incorporate them into dessert if you're looking for a little bit of a healthier option. And with this one, we're using brown sugar, some oats. So oats also are a great source of soluble fiber, which helps with cholesterol, blood sugar, and are a prebiotic for immune health. A little bit of maple syrup, a little bit of coconut oil, mainly for the flavor. It's not inherently any healthier than other fats, but it does lend a lot of great flavor when baking. Some walnuts or pecans for, again, healthy fats and omega-3s, and zinc and vitamin E. Raisins add a little bit of natural sweetness, and really randomly are a really good source of iron, which isn't really directly involved in the immune system, but certainly plays a role in lots of other aspects of health. And then cinnamon, which is one of the compounds that can help promote immune health. So we're going to preheat our oven, prepare our apples, coat them with the sugar, put it in a greased baking dish. Then we'll combine all the other ingredients, pour it over the apples, bake in the oven until it's crispy. And then if you'd like to serve it with vanilla ice cream, you're welcome to. All right. So we have another 10 minutes. So let me just briefly cover food safety, and then we'll take questions. Hopefully some of you are still with me. I know this is a lot of information and I'm moving through it pretty fast, but I feel confident that this is being recorded and you have access to the slides. So I want to just briefly touch on safe food handling, preparation, and storage, because that in doing so you can reduce the risk of foodborne illness, and that is really important to protecting your immune system and not causing it any excess harm. So 4 main steps: clean, separate, cook, chill. All right, so clean, the first step. Washing your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds, sanitizing all your surfaces, also making sure you sanitize the fridge and the freezer at least every once in a while. Fresh produce, wash it under running water, dry it with a clean towel or paper towel, and this is cloth or paper towel, and make sure that's true for conventional and organic. And even if you're going to peel it, you still want to wash it. And if it's like a tough outer, use a brush or a scrub to get off that debris. Do not use soap or disinfectant on produce. That's a bad idea. Do not wash raw meat, poultry, fish, or eggs. This can actually spread bacteria. Do wash cans and jars to get off some of that stuff, that debris, before you open it, and then it could get into the can. And then if you're using reusable grocery totes, sponges, dish rags frequently, which of course is great for the environment, make sure you're cleaning them and storing them in a clean location. I feel like I'm kind of guilty about that with my reusable grocery bags, so I'm probably not the only one. All right, the next step after clean is separate. So we want to keep ready-to-eat items like fruit and vegetables away from raw meat, poultry, and seafood at all stages, from like grocery shopping to cooking, to avoid cross-contamination. So if some of the bacteria or something from the raw meat that you're then going to cook and cook it out gets into the fresh fruit or vegetables that we're going to eat raw, that could be bad. You want to create that physical distance even in your shopping cart if you can. So like not keeping the meat and the poultry and the seafood that's raw like near that fresh produce in your shopping cart, using separate bags. So not putting it in the same reusable grocery bag. In the fridge, store the raw stuff, the raw meat below, the stuff that the fresh fruits and vegetables, so that it doesn't drip down onto it. And then definitely use separate and clean cutting boards for the prep. So you're not gonna, slice up your chicken on one cutting board and then like put some grapes on there. The next step is cooking, or the next kind of stage where food safety comes into play. So you want to cook your food to a safe internal temperature, and that's what's going to destroy any of the potentially harmful bacteria. So especially for fish, seafood, meat, poultry, and egg dishes, you want to cook it to that safe internal temperature, and using a food thermometer will ensure that you can do that. Put it in the thickest part of the food, not touching the bone, the fat, or the gristle, to make sure it's accurate, and then wash that food thermometer thoroughly between uses. Once foods are hot, and this is actually important as we come up to like the holiday season and buffets and dinner parties, you want to keep the hot foods hot. So you don't want to let them fall below 140, which is considered like the temperature danger zone where the bacteria could thrive. We want to keep the hot foods hot. And then if you're reheating poultry and leftovers, we want to reheat it to the internal temperature of 165. And just keep in mind that microwave ovens can cook unevenly and leave some cold spots. So, if it's a dish, making sure you're kind of mixing it around, every part of it gets reheated or reheat in the oven. And then finally, chill. So just like we want to keep hot foods hot, we want to keep cold foods cold. So out of that temperature danger zone. We don't want the foods to be in that temperature danger zone for more than 2 hours, which would be between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Refrigerate those leftovers promptly. Keeping your refrigerator and your freezer at the proper temperatures, which is 40 degrees for the fridge and 0 degrees for the freezer. When you are thawing your foods, do it in the refrigerator. Do it in cold water or do it in the microwave. Don't thaw it on the counter. And just be careful when you're grocery shopping. I would put a frozen food with other frozen foods in the bag, especially if you have a longer commute. You don't want to necessarily put a frozen food next to something warm, and then both of them kind of fall into that temperature danger zone potentially. And really trying to go directly home from the grocery store so you can promptly refrigerate and freeze your foods. More food safety resources here for those interested. And then I just wanted to touch on, we've been focusing, and as a dietitian, my main scope of practice is talking about how nutrition impacts immunity, but there's a lot of other factors that can support immune health and factors that are in your control. So the first, eating the balanced diet, like we've been talking about, fruits, vegetables, and these other nutrient-rich foods. Don't smoke, exercise regularly, maintain a healthy weight. If you do drink alcohol, do so in moderation. Get adequate sleep. Wash your hands, thoroughly cook your meats, and take other steps to reduce spread of infections, and then manage stress, which I believe you have some good support for that through Cox. But yeah, all these aspects of a healthy lifestyle will also impact immune health in a positive way. All right, so we've got the takeaway. I know we covered a ton, and I do hope you'll look back on these slides and use them as a resource. But what I hope you walk away from today's presentation knowing or having top of mind is that, first of all, nutrition plays a powerful role in many different aspects of our health, including the immune system, but our food choices cannot and do not prevent or cure any virus. But you can optimize your immune health by eating a balanced diet that's rich in these immune-supporting nutrients that we talked about, our antioxidants, our protein, our vitamin D, our omega-3s, and our polyphenols. And we can find all these immune-supporting nutrients in many common foods, and we can incorporate easily, for most of us, these foods into our daily eating pattern. So that's what I really tried to show, and especially with that sample day of eating. Be careful with supplements. If you can get your nutrients through food, including your immune-supporting nutrients through food, I would. And don't forget about food safety and other lifestyle factors that can impact immune health. All right. Well, thank you. I know, again, we covered a lot and I went really fast, but for those of you who are still on the call, thank you. And I would love to take some questions now. And then for anyone who either doesn't get their question addressed, or it's too personal, or they decide they want more one-on-one virtual nutrition support to work on their diet and kind of in a way that really reflects their individual needs and goals, we do offer virtual nutrition counseling for Cox employees, and that's all through the fitness center. So Amy, Bush, or Jacob can help you connect you with me and kind of learn what services are available and get that all set up. So hopefully some of you will take advantage of that. Okay. Jacob, do we have questions in our last 3 minutes?
Yes. We have quite a couple. So the first Sheila asks what's covered in a one-on-one first session and then a follow-up session.
Okay. So good question. So yeah, if you wanted to work individually with a dietitian, there's an intake form that goes out first, so I kind of get a sense of what your goals are, what your current eating pattern looks like, any medications or health conditions that you have, current exercise routine, current like lifestyle, like when you sleep, where you eat out, things like that. Your blood lipid panel, glucose, so all the kind of relevant information. And then it's really individualized based on your goals. So the main first step is typically kind of reviewing what you're doing currently, and then offering some modifications that are really evidence-based, but also really practical, to kind of nudge your nutrition intake in a way that supports your goals and optimizes your health, or whatever it is that you're trying to work towards. So yeah, it is going to be very individual recommendations and modifications to kind of what you're currently doing, and that could be food swaps, that could be portions, that could be timing. So lots of different things can go into that. And then follow-ups, we check in. What changes were you able to make? What impacts have those changes had? What changes are you struggling to make? We sort of fine-tune the plan based on how things are going. And it just provides some additional accountability and support.
Let me see. Trying to see if we have any. We got a few questions that aren't directly related to what we talked about. So I can go ahead and ask those, or if anyone has questions, I guess, directly related to that, I can send them to you and we can get those answered. But there's two other questions here if you want to answer them.
Sure.
Okay, so first one would be, says how many cheat meals can you have a week while still improving fitness and leaning out?
Well, it depends. It depends on so many factors, and even what you mean by the term cheat meal, which isn't a term I actually really like or advocate for. Your health and your fitness and the impact that your nutrition has on your health and your fitness, it's a result of your overall dietary pattern, not what you do once in a while. So whatever you do consistently is going to have much more of an impact on your health and your fitness goals than whatever you do once in a while. So I would say for the most part, focus on making the majority of your food choices nutrient rich, health promoting, and then also incorporate foods that are more for pleasure and less nutritious. But how often, how frequently, how much to incorporate those foods is going to be very individual. But I would, for everyone, advocate away from that sort of black or white approach of I'm on a diet or I'm eating a cheat meal, and sort of move towards more of a flexible, balanced approach where I'm mainly choosing nutrient-rich foods, but I'm also going to enjoy chocolate and pizza and tacos or whatever it is. And you can also find ways to make traditionally less healthy foods a little bit more healthy by ramping up the vegetables, or sort of modifying the portions. So again, I'd move away from that mentality of a cheat meal to start, and then kind of figure out based on where you're starting from and where you're trying to go, how frequently and in what portions you can include foods that are less nutritious but very pleasurable, because it is important to do that. We want our diets, or whatever, I use that term to really just refer to the food we eat. We want the food pattern that we're following to be something that's sustainable, and for that to be the case, it needs to be enjoyable.
All right, and just one more question I see. Says, how do we know if we are eating too much protein?
Oh, that's a good question. Very good question. And I don't actually have an answer for how would you know you're eating too much. But because you can. I mean, you can eat too much to the extent that it crowds out the other nutrients, the other macros. So we talked about in the foundation section how our bodies require and really do best when we have a balance of all three macros: protein, carbs, and fat. So in theory, if we're eating too much protein, we might not be eating enough fat and carbs, and we could sort of have those consequences. A lot of times with exercise performance, especially endurance exercise, if we're not getting enough carbs, we're going to find our endurance impaired. We're not going to be able to go as long, or energy impaired for exercise performance, not being able to go as hard without the ample carbs, and I guess that could be a side effect of too much protein, is not enough carbs. Some people may find that eating too much animal protein specifically could lead to constipation. There is some evidence, like if you really overdose it, it could strain the kidneys, but that would be like long term, because your kidneys have to filter out the some of the nitrogen that's on the protein, but that's more than you need to know. But yeah, too much of a good thing, again, is not a good thing. So I would kind of calculate it two ways. You can start with the body weight calculation and figure out your body weight in kilograms, and then say, okay, high end of the range, max you would probably want to be taking in would be 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So if you're above that, that might be a red flag to scale it back. You can also do it as a percentage of total calories. So if you know how many grams of protein you're eating and how many calories you're eating, you can figure out what percentage of your total calories are coming from protein. And you want to make sure that you have a good balance of your calories coming from carbs, protein, and fat. And so if you see the protein being skewed really higher than, I'd say, 35% of your calories from protein, that would be another reason to kind of scale back.
All right, I think that was all of them. If I get any other questions, I'll send them to you, Alissa, and we can get those answered. And
well, I appreciate you getting this set up. I appreciate all of you who tuned in and stayed for the hour, and I hope those who are watching this as a recording find it a useful resource. And Jacob, I will go ahead and send the slides as well. And yeah, best of luck, with your immune health going forward. Just, focusing on what you can control and try not to get obsessive about it.
all right, thanks, Alissa.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.